I wanted to talk a little bit about a strange variation in Yugoslavian AKs, and that would be the M64. The M64 started life in kind of a strange way. So during the time of the Soviet Union, if you were on the Soviet Union's good side, you got the technical data package for the AKM platform, and that included, at the time, what we would refer to as a Type 2, Type 3. So it's a milled receiver and a screwed-in barrel. Well, Yugoslavia was kind of doing its own thing at the time, and it didn't get the technical data package. And that package actually includes, like the correct manufacturing methods and all the little tips and tricks and things like that, how to set up the factory. But like I said, they didn't get that. Another thing that Yugoslavia also didn't get was an ability to use chrome, because Russia, the Soviet Union, has large quantities of chromium mines, which is pretty important for chrome plating the inside of barrels. Well, Yugoslavia didn't get that. And Yugoslavia actually doesn't have any existing chromium mines in its borders at the time before it broke up. So what they did was they basically backwards engineered a couple of captured AKs, and what they came up with was their first iteration called the M64. I have an example of that right here. This is an original barreled M64 Parts Kit. So from this side, I mean, there's a few different things going on here, but for the most part, this portion looks like what you would expect off of a Type 2, Type 3. Big lightning cut over here, slab side, right? You move a little bit farther up, things start to look a little bit different. Instead of 2 vent holes, you got 3 right there. Move a little bit farther up, we got this gizmo right here, which is a gas cutoff for the gas system and a rifle grenade sight. Kind of hard to see there. I got a big shadow casting on that, but that's what that is. And then up here, we have the standard 14 by 1 millimeter left-hand muzzle thread. This is not the correct muzzle device for this. This would just have a standard like thread protector nut. So, right, that's pretty weird to start off with, right? If we take a little bit of a closer look, we have this. The rear sight right here, and you'll notice this little flappy bit right here. It's night sights right there. So that is standard. Those are the night sights. The night sights on this kit do not luminesce. This is a very old kit. And then there's a corresponding flip up, flip down night sight on the front. There's a few different variations on these. Some were done with actual tritium vials in the beginning, like this kit. And later they moved over to luminescent paint. They look like big bullseyes that are painted on there. So you would think that that's all that they did, kind of screwy, right? Well, it gets even better. So if we kind of move back a little bit farther here, something's up with this side, isn't it? So right here, this looks like your typical slab side, right? Except it's missing a lightning cut. If you can tell, the profile of the receiver has actually been bulged out right there, and there's this screw with a nut on the back side of it, and that is actually for a integral bolt hold open mechanism. What they decided was they didn't like how the AK didn't lock open on the last round, so they made up a system on the inside and added the extra receiver material to accommodate this with a lever and a trip that would hold the bolt open on the last round of the magazine. However, you needed special magazines in order to make that work because the lever had to be tripped by the follower in the magazine. And I've got an example of one of those right here. So there is the space, the cutout for that lever that rides inside the receiver on the left-hand side, the passenger side of the receiver. So when the follower comes all the way up and you're on your last round, right? You fire your last round, bolt cycles back, follower pops up, trips the lever steps in front of the way of the bolt, bolt locks open, right? Now the bonus of that meant that you could take this magazine out and the bolt would stay locked open up until you gently rack the bolt, or you just rack the bolt in general, and then the lever would fall out of the way and the bolt would ride forward. So again, there is that notch, that cutout right there. And then this is for an example right here. This is a standard, well, this is a Bosnian 2-rib. You can see there's no cutout right there. Completely slab-sided up there. So that's pretty interesting. If we take a look right there, that disc-looking object right there, that is one of the pivot points for that bolt hold open mechanism. And then farther up the receiver, there is another pivot point for that to ride on. And then that's how the bolt hold open mechanism actually functions. So moving along from there, I mean, that's pretty screwy. We have the top cover. This looks like your standard milled pattern top cover, correct? What is this? What is this thing right here? What's going on there? We got it over on the other side too. This all kind of has to do with the Yugoslavians' military doctrine. So their idea was, and this actually explains a lot about the rifle in general, the Yugoslavian military was extremely experienced using guerrilla warfare and partisan techniques in World War II in order to wage an unconventional war against opposing forces. And so what Tito decided to do was keep that same mindset, and we want everybody to be able to defend the homeland in an unconventional way. And so that meant using standard rifles and standard riflemen as grenadiers and basically insurgency tactics at that point. So that was one of the reasons why they fitted grenade sights and gas shutoffs to every AK that they produced, except until they got to commercial way later. They wanted everybody to be able to use rifle grenades. You also see this on all their SKSs, except for the M59, which was the very first SKS they ever produced. These are one of the, you can spot this across the room. No matter where you are, you will instantly tell if you've got a Yugo gun just by seeing this. This is a feature, like I said, that went all the way through up until recent times when they started producing commercial rifles. But on that same token, launching rifle grenades off of a regular rifle is hard. It beats the shit out of guns, right? And so what they discovered that after continuous use with rifle grenades, launching blanks and all that sort of thing, the top covers would pop off because there was just so much force being impacted on it. So this actually acts as a locking lever. Well, this is the cutout for the locking lever, let me say that. So moving along to the ass end of this. So this particular kit is an underfolder, which Yugoslavia has a very strange fascination with underfolders, which I mean, I get. I like underfolders too, but it always seems like whenever you find a Yugoslavian kit, most of them are underfolders. So if you see up here, that button right there, that traverses all the way through the receiver to the opposite side. And this is a mechanism to lock the recoil spring in place, thereby locking the top cover in place. And I personally believe that that's a very ingenious move in order to keep from losing parts, obviously, and it just kind of is a no-brainer the more and more you think about it. So another part of that strange receiver design that we see up here, again, this side, the right side, I'll call it the driver's side, completely slab-sided, right? The right side is slab-sided all the way up until you get to those two lightning, or up to the single lightning cut at the breech end of the barrel, right? But then if you go over here to the passenger side, the left side, there is the profile that was cut away, and then up here would be the bulged out part for the second pivot. So this lip right here at the very top is what the top cover will rest on. And then this is basically a gigantic external lightning cut. It's just a way to save a little bit more material, make the rifle a little bit lighter. I've personally re-welded 2 of these, and they are heavy guns. They are really heavy. So that's just what they ended up doing. I enjoy the platform just because it's incredibly unique. It's the only AK that I can think of that has so many odd features all stacked up on top of one another. So for comparison's sake, we're looking at the M64 right here. I'm going to grab an M70. So this is an M70 underfolder right here. So this was the first re-weld I ever did off of a parts kit. So if you look at this from standing back there, you can see that there are a few similarities right off the rip. So you have the grenade sight and the gas cutoff. You have the 3-hole furniture, the 3-vent hole furniture. That still persists to this day, even on the commercial rifles. If you look back here, we still have the cutout and the pin slot for the locking tab back there. But looking on this side, this is completely slab-sided all the way up to this lightning cut, right? When we flip it over, boom, nothing. This is also a complete slab side over on this side. And if you can tell right here, the barrel has actually been pinned into place instead of screwed and torqued down. Yeah, right there. So this is a press and pin barrel into a milled receiver. This is what some people would call a late Type 3. That's what I call it as, because this is right before the transition over to stamped receivers with trunnions. And then one other holdover from the M64 is going to be the use of night sights right here. So you've got your standard rear relief, flip it up, boom, right there, those 2 little tiny dots. And then again on the front. So standard front sight, this one's real stiff. And then there's your glow-in-the-dark night sight right there. Now, another thing that ended up happening was the M64 proved to be extremely expensive to make, and they ran into the issue of the bolt hold open mechanism itself. What the problem ended up being was that they had trouble being able to use magazines from other countries. Domestically produced AK mags, there was only so many at the time, and each one of them needed this very specific little cutout. Well, they decided like that's a whole lot of effort. That's a whole lot of extra work, not only with the mags but also for the rifle in general. I mean, they basically redesigned the AK. So they scrapped that idea. They pulled all the levers, the bolt hold open levers, out of existing M64s in service, and then they swapped over to what is called the BHO, the bolt hold open follower. So the AK magazine gets inserted. It doesn't have this cut. It just has a flat on the back of the follower, meaning on the very last round, you fire the last round, the bolt is going to slam into that flat and it's going to stay there. Bolt will stay open up until you take the magazine out. Kind of a trade-off, but it made everything a lot simpler. So they went from this almost like Swiss clock design to this very, very simple design, and then after that they started swapping over to stamped builds with trunnions. So that's just a brief little overview of some of the things that I've picked up working with Yugo rifles and things like that. I've personally contacted Zastava USA to see if they would maybe let up on the machining prints for some of the original bolt hold open levers to see if I might be able to make a few of them, but they are a little tight-lipped about that. So there's a few of them that managed to make their way into the country that didn't get recalled from Yugo service. So it's a matter of trying to track those people down and get an example to make one up. See how it actually works, because I do have quite a few of these M64 magazines. So that's just a little bit of the history on the M64 platform. So hope you enjoyed. Happy building.